Hey guys, welcome back to Cosmic Road. This is Jack. I talk about UFOs and the paranormal. Please hit like, please subscribe, all that kind of good stuff. Today I want to talk about Lou Elizondo in the pushing the United Nations to get into the whole field of UAP and UFOs. This could be a game changer, a global game changer on the UFO topic. This is huge. This is really monumental. Can everybody hear me? Is my mic working okay? Hey, the UN thing seems good, but UN is not to trust. Well, yeah, but it's still progress. I'm 50-50 on this. Eager to hear your input, Jack. Yeah, well, thank you very much. So I was alerted to this topic on Twitter, and I'll just go to Lou Elizondo's tweet. 3 years of hard work finally pay off. Thank you to those that supported us. Major thanks to Paolo, Roberto, and Vladimiro, our friends in Italy, for which this would not have been possible without them. Also, a huge thank you to San Marino, and he links to the article by Liberation Times. May or may not want to read the whole article. I've linked to it in the description. Project Titan approved by San Marino. UFOs set to be discussed at United Nations for first time since 1978. That's why this is such a big deal. People are finally taking this issue seriously, and it's becoming a global situation. Today, the Parliament of San Marino voted in favor to participate in Project Titan, meaning San Marino will submit a proposal to the UN for the creation of a permanent office tasked with the preparation of periodic global conferences dedicated to the scientific study of UFOs, otherwise known as UAP. The proposal will now be submitted to the UN Secretary General before undergoing a preliminary examination and discussion. Following this, the proposal would be submitted to a vote at the General Assembly. Yeah, so this hasn't been passed. This is in the works. This is something that might be. It has not happened yet. So we can cross our fingers and hope it happens. I don't trust the UN a whole lot, but it is progress. I don't trust the U.S. government a whole lot, but it is progress that Congress is actually getting involved in this. So this is huge. So if successfully passed, the United Nations would run the new office, which organizes periodic conferences hosted by San Marino, becoming the Geneva of global UAP studies. The conferences would be accessible to private and state-backed researchers and organizations. Excuse me. Also known as Project Titan, the proposal was created and managed by Paolo Gazzardi on behalf of the Centro Uvala. I'm going to butcher that. The acronym is CUN, Italy's main ufological organization in the International Coalition for Extraterrestrial Research. Yeah, and this is something Lou Elizondo has talked about a lot over the last couple of years, moving into second gear. He talks about gears and how we're, switching gears. He was with TTSA and got the videos out and did his initial round of media coverage and all that good stuff that really got the ball rolling and got people talking about this, then ultimately led to congressional action and a new government program in the U.S. And so I guess that was gear one. But gear two, if you know what I'm talking about, in a couple of interviews, he talked about how we are switching gears, or how he is switching gears, and it is his mission or his agenda or whatever. He has this multi-gear plan. It may not be all set in stone, but it's a general rough idea where he wants to go. And he's talked about engaging the international community, and that seems to be gear two. That's my take on it. And I think he has said something to that effect before. That he wants to engage the international community. That's big. As far as Italy goes, did he start making contacts with these guys during the TV show Unidentified? Because there was an episode where they went to Italy, I think in the second season. I'm pretty sure it was Italy. It was either Italy or Spain. I'm pretty sure it was Italy. And there was that really cool or interesting case where a UFO shot down a helicopter with a laser beam. And just really wild. I talk a lot about how there seems to be conflict with the UFOs, or at least some subset of the UFOs and their occupants. How we fire at UFOs and have for a long time, and how they fire at us occasionally. And that was one example in the second season of Unidentified, starring Lou Elizondo, where they went to Italy, I think, and talked to some, I think, retired cabinet members, former cabinet members, and learned that incredible story of the UFO shooting down the helicopter. Why did it shoot down the helicopter? Was the helicopter up to something? Was the helicopter, spying on the UAP or something? We didn't get any details about possible motivations for that helicopter shooting or being fired upon by the UFO. Usually you can see a justification, a justification, if you want to call it that, for their actions. A lot of cases there will be military jets harassing a UFO or trying to get close to a UFO, and the UFO will fire on them or displace them. Sometimes they get displaced, sometimes they appear, sometimes they don't reappear. So Wendell Stevens did a great presentation on that a few years ago, so you might want to check that out. Yeah, on one particular case. So moving on with the article, speaking to Liberation Times about Project Titan's approval. Oh yeah, and I guess my point was that Lou Elizondo has been instrumental in a lot of this action involving the UN in San Marino, and I wonder if that's when he began to make contacts with the government in Italy and those people. So speaking to Liberation Times, Guizzardi commented, "Today, the nation of San Marino," and San Marino is actually a little nation, "has made a momentous decision, meaning the UFO phenomenon will now be discussed where it belongs, at the United Nations, the highest council of humanity." That's pretty grandiose, but it's kind of hard to argue with. This project is hugely important in today's world when nations are observing transmedium objects in their skies and seas. Against the backdrop of conflicts like in Ukraine, it is this topic which can promote positive cooperation so that we can help solve an enigma which we all face. Yeah, I learned some new stuff about the UFOs in Ukraine yesterday. Really interesting. What's his name? He's a really cool guy that has a YouTube channel. He was a former military guy, very narrow face. Anyway, really sharp, good guy. He's been around for a while, and he had some information on the phantoms and the cosmics, the two types of UFOs seen in the Ukraine. And he says that they may be the same objects, but in the toposphere or the troposphere, whatever it's called, which is the lower atmosphere, they appear one way. And above the troposphere, if I'm saying that right, they appear another way, which is fascinating. What does that mean? I don't know, but it was new information to me. If any of you have any insight into what that means, that I would love to hear it. The government of San Marino is no stranger to UAP and has been sponsoring symposiums on the topic for 30 years, organized by Italy's CUN. Liberation Times understands that the Project Titan proposal was presented by San Marino's Ministry of Culture, which made the case for the project's approval. The proposal marks the first time since 1978 that the topic of UAP has been raised for discussion at the UN. In 1978, Grenada's UN UAP initiative, led by its then Prime Minister Sir Eric Gary, ultimately failed following fierce opposition from the United Kingdom. Why did the UK oppose that? Possibly because they are more under the sway of the US, and the US didn't want them involved in this. That would be my supposition, but I could be wrong. Let's see. Some of you guys have some comments. Let me go through them. Cosmic Road, take me home. Yeah. Maybe something big is coming. I hope so. Well, we still have, the big news from George Knapp and Jeremy Corbell. I'm sorry, guys. I got a lot of allergies here. Yeah, bad allergy season. Yeah, but yeah, they Jeremy and George teased big news coming in January. Well, here we are in January 21st, and still no big news from those guys. So we may have an exciting week or two ahead of us. I hope so. That'd be awesome. Bring it on, guys. What do you think that's going to be? Is that going to be a new whistleblower? Is that going to be a new video? I mean, I would love either one. I would love to see some cool video. When the whole UAP report was first talked about a few months ago, it was teased that there was this amazing drone footage from the Middle East that showed this fantastic UAP or a phenomenon, a UAP phenomenon that went on for like 40 minutes or something. And apparently it was just jaw dropping, amazing footage. And, we learned about that, but they didn't, we haven't heard anything else about that since. So, I would love for that to be what George and Jeremy drop. I don't expect it. But wouldn't that be amazing? But yeah, hopefully it'll be something juicy. I need to keep this conversation going. Need. It's been a while since we've had a really good juicy UFO video that's been authenticated by the Pentagon. There have been some really great UFO stuff, videos that have come out, and I might start doing a series where I showcase what I think are the best recent UFO videos. Oh, thank you very much. I got a donation. Thank you very much. Yeah, I guess that now would be a good time for a channel break. This is Cosmic Road. I'm Jack. I talk about UFOs and the paranormal. I got this chair over here. I try to keep that out of the frame. I have two chairs on either side of me for the cats. So that's why I have these chairs here. But yeah, if you wanted to support Cosmic Road and help me spend more time on this channel and make these videos better and stronger, I would love it if you would become a channel member. See the first line in the description below, or simply use the super chat. That'd be awesome. I would love that. Thank you so much for those of you who have been helping me out. I really, really appreciate that. Let's see. Are we deceiving ourselves? Probably. Can you be more specific? UAP David says if it gets discussed by the UN, it's definitely huge news. Exactly. I mean, that is huge news. LD Drum says we are all waiting for the big news that never come. Well, I mean, I totally see where you're coming from. I would argue, though, that the last few years have been a roller coaster of news and events. We've got the new UFO program, Arrow. I'm not super impressed by Sean Kirkpatrick and his willingness to talk to the public and to disclose to the public. I think that Arrow is not, it's not Blue Book. It's not designed to debunk stuff, I don't think, but I think it is more geared toward what they're doing behind the scenes. That is my take on it. I would love to be proven wrong. I hope they start coming out with this stuff publicly. I'm not encouraged by some of the stuff that Tim Burchett has said, Representative Burchett, where he talks about members of Congress being compromised on this issue. And, he specifically referenced Marco Rubio, which is interesting because that's in his same party. That's very interesting that he would fire shots at Marco Rubio over a fringe thing like UFOs if he didn't really have some hard evidence that that was the case. And if Marco's compromised, I'm sure a lot of the others are too. Is that the control group exerting pressure on them? What exactly is causing that? Where is that pressure coming from? How are they being compromised? By whom? The energy industry that doesn't want us to know about 0 point energy. The control group, Men in Black. I guess that's more or less the same thing. Yeah, it never happened before, so that's good. Lou has been pretty quiet as of late. Yeah, he's finally coming out. He's had a couple of tweets lately, and this was one of them. And I think that the reason why he hasn't been speaking a lot lately is exactly this, because he has been working on this and getting the UN involved and engaging that second gear, as he says. I think that's what he's been doing behind the scenes. He hasn't been public, but he has been doing stuff behind the scenes. And here we see the results of that. I mean, I'm sure there were many other people involved, but I think he was a big part in the whole Project Titan thing and getting things going with the UN. So, so yeah, I think that's why he's been quiet. And now that we have this major progress, potential progress, because it hasn't been passed, but if it goes forward and gets passed, I would, I would expect Lou to start being more public. And he's got the new book coming out, so of course he's going to want to talk about that. Later this year, it's estimated that it is going to come out. I would love for it to come out tomorrow, but yeah, so he's going to have to make the rounds for that and talk about that. And I would expect him to start talking more publicly now that the whole project, the Titan thing, is going forward. And if it doesn't go forward, he might talk about that. So, a silent war behind the curtain. Yes, there's absolutely a silent war behind the curtain. There's definitely conflict. Yeah, there's conflict. Tom DeLonge talked about this on the Steve O podcast. Oh, I missed that. Well, actually, maybe I didn't. I try to watch everything with Tom, but I don't know if I saw that one. I love Steve O. He's fun. But what did Tom say on Steve O? Can you tell me more about that, Todd? What was he talking about? The conflict between the UFOs firing at us and us firing at them. I mean, that is just a bad idea. I hope we know what we're doing. I talk a lot about how we seem to be working with the beings, and that's another thing I wanted to bring up today was Terry Lovelace. He just did a great interview with Engaging the Phenomenon, and it looks like he might actually talk to Arrow. We have these whistleblowers coming forward behind the scenes now, talking to Arrow. People like Robert Salas and others are said to be talking to Sean Kirkpatrick and those other guys. And it looks like Terry Lovelace might be among them. I really hope so, because his information is insane. He openly talks about seeing 50 military guys aboard a giant UFO. He says from the outside, this UFO was as big as a Walmart, but inside it was even bigger. It was vast. And the military guys, the human guys, were working right alongside the non-humans. And so if that information comes to Congress, maybe they already have heard similar stuff. But Terry Lovelace is a great case because he has talked to Lou Elizondo, and Lou Elizondo speaks highly of him. Anyway, but that's another interesting thing. That's another possible whistleblower that's going to come forward. And if Terry Lovelace's information does go public, if they go public with some part of his story, it's huge, because he talks about the military covering this up and threatening him into silence and all sorts of stuff. Now, it's interesting that they did seem to want to, in the Terry Lovelace case, they hypnotized him to find out what he knew. My allergies are going crazy today. And that's really interesting. So, what does that imply? They hypnotized him after this abduction to find out what he knew. Does that mean they didn't know what he knew? Does that mean they wanted to make sure he didn't know anything that he was not supposed to know? What would have happened if he had remembered something he wasn't supposed to remember? Would he still be with us? Or was it something else altogether? Maybe they wanted to find out what the beings were doing, and that's why they hypnotized him. Because that does seem to be the reason behind a lot of the MyLabs cases, the military abductions. They abduct people using a sophisticated technology that bears a shocking resemblance to the technology used by the aliens, which is how Stephen Greer can get away with saying it's all the military. But they abduct people that have already been abducted, and then they hypnotize them and they interrogate them, sometimes very harshly. And people have very negative experiences with the military abductions. And they want to find out what the beings are doing, what their technology is specifically. They're very interested in the beings' technology, which makes perfect sense. I would be just as interested in what the hell they're doing and why are they abducting people. Of course, maybe they already know that. According to the rumors, President Eisenhower met with the beings and maybe 3 different races. And he said no to one of them and yes to 2 of them, and made treaties with 2 of them. And, that's the rumor. There's various versions of that story. And but according to one version, he arranged for a treaty involving a technology transfer from the beings to us, and in exchange, we would allow them, or the government would allow them, to abduct people. So, who knows if that's true, but that is one of these stories going around, and that has been going around for a while. And there is some evidence for it, but there's evidence for all of this stuff, and there's so many different versions of these things. Yeah, let's see. Lex says, I wondered at what point this topic would go international. Exactly. So far, it seems that America is the one speaking about it. Yeah, they are. They are. But it's global. A lot of countries like China is very silent. It's hard to get any information out of them. We do know of a few cases from China. We know of some cases from Russia. A lot of stuff leaked out after the Soviet Union collapsed, and there are cases of Soviet jets firing on the UFOs. So that's a thing, and we know that happened in Iran. Thank you very much. Somebody gave me another super chat. Let me see who that is. Thank you. Appreciate that. Yeah, that's awesome. I think it was Puerto Rico. Yeah, I've heard that it is owned by a different country. Let's see. I'm missing some stuff. Yeah, Todd D, thank you very much for the super chat. I appreciate that. A UFO historian, Majestic. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Weaponized. Corbell's thing is called weaponized curiosity. Weaponize your curiosity. That's what he always says. Love Corbell. Can't wait for his next documentary. I wonder what that is going to be about. I loved his documentary about Bob Lazar in Skinwalker Ranch. That was amazing. Wonderful narrations to both of those. Really great. Do the men in black fear or respect Lou? That's something I've wondered too. If so, that's pretty awesome. Maybe that's why we don't hear much about the silencers. Screw those guys, whatever they are. Yeah, whatever they are is a good question, because some of the men in black appear perfectly human, and I think they are. Some of them don't. Some of them appear shockingly inhuman. And they're creepy and weird, and they're not human. So are they working with the human men in black? Do they represent separate agendas and separate parties? Because they seem to do a lot of the same sorts of stuff, silencing witnesses and experiencers. So, I assume they are working together, the non-humans and the humans, men in black. I think that is probably, one example of one of the things they are doing together. But it's hard to get any confirmation or verification of that. Serge, if I'm saying that right, Sergey Saw says, are we at a place where we have never been before, or have we been there before? Okay. All right. Yeah. I don't know. It's all cyclical, right? Billy Hates Corruption says, my guess is they're going to confirm that the U.S. has recovered alien ships. Oh, man, wouldn't that be nice? Wouldn't that be nice? Would they do that? Would they go there? I think they might confirm that there are ships. They may not say they're alien, but they might actually go on the record saying, yeah, we have some ships. We don't know who made them or what they're about. That would kind of be my guess as to their first step, as far as disclosure goes, actual official disclosure. They're going to soft pedal it at first. They're going to unroll just the barest nuggets they can, and then it's going to slowly ramp up over the years. We're going to get bigger and bigger nuggets as the public has time to digest this. Oh wait, they've got ships. Well, who are flying these ships? And people will start asking these questions, and and it'll go from there. So, one thing I've been talking a lot about lately is the ARVs, and that is really interesting. I have another article here on another source for confirming ARVs, because I don't like to fall into the silo of information trap where you're only getting information from a contained number of sources. And the ARV information, I've seen it sporadically in my research over the years, but principally a lot of that is coming from Mark McClandish. John Keel also talked about it decades earlier. But now I have another source that's talking about ARVs, and I think that is super fascinating. That and John Keel and Mark McClandish both say the same thing, which is interesting. That we have had these things, these alien reproduction vehicles, if you don't know what ARV is, since at least the 60s. So, which is an interesting development if that's true, because that kind of lines up with the whole Eisenhower thing, right? If indeed we did make a deal with some subset of the beings, alien abductions in exchange for technology, well, that could be the technology. So, I did lay out a few days ago in one video a different scenario for how we could have acquired ARVs, pursuing it from a completely non-alien point of view. So go check that video out if you're inclined. But yeah, it gets into the whole electrogravitic thing and how we may have arrived at that technology independently, possibly inspired by observing UAP and UFOs. In particular, the impetus was the UFO flyover of Washington, D.C. in 1952. And that's one scenario of how we developed the ARVs. But another one could very well be that we acquired that technology in exchange for allowing the beings to abduct people. So, which is interesting. And the timeline on that lines up very well with us having this stuff in the 60s. If we were given this stuff in the 50s through the agreement with Eisenhower and we developed it, and we were flying these things around in the 60s. So, what were we doing with that technology? If we have our own flying saucers, what were we doing? Were we going to the moon? Were we going to some of those structures I've talked about on the moon or Mars? Were we? I mean, we didn't conquer the world with that technology. We lost Vietnam, so we didn't seem to be using it in war. So what were we doing with that technology? If we possessed that, what in God's sakes, what were we doing with it? Yeah, and Christian has a good point. I wanted to bring back to Christian Morales' point. Do the men in black fear or respect Lou? Yeah. How do they respond to Lou? How do they take all this? I'm reminded of the Barbara Lamb incident. If you don't know who she is, she's a very famous UFO researcher, and she hypnotically regressed thousands of people and kind of was an ally and confidant of Dolores Cannon. And I put them in the same silo of information because they talked a lot and their information was very similar. We are moving into the fifth dimension and it's very nice. And I think that's awesome. And I really resonate with that. I hope that's true. But when she started to become popular and famous, she had a series of abductions. And when Dolores Cannon regressed her, they found out that the beings had replicated her mind. When they abducted her, they had made a copy of her mind and were sifting through it, trying to find out what she knew and what she had learned from her researches into hypnotizing all these people and finding out what had happened to them during their own abductions, because that's what she did. So that is one example of what can happen when the powers that be are alerted to your existence and you're prying into their affairs. Now they didn't harm her and they seemed perfectly nice, but they did say they were going to make this information known to the other beings, and they were going to send out a signal to the other beings that were visiting this world, letting them know what she knew. So is that going to alter their abductions? Are they going to do different things now? Are they going to mind wipe people more effectively because they learned that she was learning a lot of stuff through these regressions? What are the implications of that? Where does that go? I don't know. Anyway, so I'm sure they're aware of Lou. I think that he's a big time guy, and they are probably, because he's a very public guy, is what I mean. And I think that probably helped Bob Lazar. That's one reason why he went public. and that is probably going to help Lou as well. People that aren't as well known probably aren't going to be as well protected. But I think he can only go so far. So, he has to be careful legally, but also, the Men in Black. Going through your comments. Yeah, whatever happened to the 20-minute video that was coming? Which one was that? Was that the drone footage? Which one was that? Oh, is that the one that was originally talked about when the big three, the Nimitz and the Roosevelt videos came out? It was talked about. There's like a really awesome 23-minute video that was just fantastic, and it showed the UAP moving in amazing ways. And Lou Elizondo himself talked about that. Man, wouldn't that be amazing? Wouldn't that be amazing to see that? That'd be badass. That'd be badass. Christian Morales says they slammed the door in our face. Yeah, well, yeah, not as bad as the Air Force. I mean, the Air Force has been mum. I mean, the Navy, at least, I think they did confirm one or two of those videos, and they've been, they could have been worse. They could have been worse. Jake from Not State Farm says, "Yeah, I've heard that it is owned by a different country. You mean is that San Marino? What do you? Can you tell me what you're talking about?" It was Puerto Rico. Christian says U.S. territory. Oh, are you talking about the footage? Yeah. Okay. Well, that could be. That could be. Well, some of our best footage comes from overseas, although it's like homeland security stuff. Was that the Puerto Rico one where we see the UFO going along the land and then skimming the surface of the water and then gradually entering the water and then coming up, and it has split into two? Is that the Homeland Security Puerto Rico one? That's where my mind is going. Yeah, Christian says U.S. territory. Yeah, that's why we were able to get that footage. Serge or Sergey, I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name, says, "I don't think we will see any smoking gun. The smoking gun does not exist, but they won't show us. Ergo, nothing has changed since in 70 years." Well, I mean, we have Arrow and we have Lou and we have a lot of new information. We have videos that have been confirmed by the Pentagon as being legit UFOs and UAPs. So I do think a lot has changed in the last few years, but not enough. No, you're absolutely right. The lid is firmly closed. The control group has a lockdown on this stuff, and they are not letting the juicy bits out. They are not. They are not. Now there is something huge that they don't want us to know, and we are heavily involved in whatever it is. See the Men in Black and how there's the human Men in Black and the alien Men in Black or whatever they are, and they're doing the same thing. And Terry Lovelace seeing 50 military guys aboard a giant UFO working with the beings, and countless alien abductions relate to seeing the beings working with the military and government types. We are in this up to our necks. I mean, the U.S. government is in this up to our necks, and even beyond the U.S. government. Lance Corporal Wygant talked about seeing a multinational coalition. Was that in Brazil? I want to say Brazil. Correct me if I'm wrong. Where he and his, I think they were Marines who went out to secure a crash site only to find out it was a UFO. He went into the UFO, interacted with one of the beings there, and then the Air Force showed up and promptly arrested him and took him back to their base. And he saw that it was an international coalition. There were even people from China there. And this was like in the 90s, I guess. So, very interesting that he was saying that this was a multinational effort, these crash retrievals, which brings to mind what Ross Coulthart was talking about, crash retrievals in Australia and from Australia. That was super fascinating to me that there were U.S. crash retrieval teams going into Australia to retrieve a downed UFO. And then there were Australian teams leaving Australia to retrieve a downed UFO elsewhere. I mean, why didn't the Australia team retrieve their own UFO? I don't get it, but it does point to the whole international coalition thing. Ross Coulthart says there's a whole parking lot of crashed UFOs at Wright-Patterson Airfield. and in Ohio, I believe. So that's fascinating. A lot of people will say that it's all gone into the private sector now. I think a lot of it has, but the military and government involvement is still huge. Still huge. Yeah. Let's see. Maybe Lou Elizondo is a Men in Black himself. Well, that's been around for a long time. That idea that Lou is actually a double agent or something, spreading disinformation. But if they were going to use somebody to do that, I don't think they would pick a former counterintelligence guy. It's just too obvious, unless that's part of their game. Jake from Not State Farm says, I will say, if your experience, are you really, you don't need, I'm sorry, I may be butchering your comment. I will say, if your experience, are you really don't need to see any pictures or footage. What I would really like to see is transparency. Yeah, no, absolutely, man. Absolutely. You are spot on. Once you've seen these things, you don't need to see any proof. You've seen the proof. I had seen, more than enough evidence to believe 100 times over that these things existed, because that's my research was pretty solid on that before I saw my first UFO a few months ago. And, it didn't make me believe in UFOs anymore, honestly, because my research, like I say, was pretty solid. I mean, the research, it's not mine, but the research is pretty solid. But yeah, seeing it, the UFO and what it did, making the shape of the cross in the sky, that was, that just points to the weird consciousness aspect of the phenomenon, because there's a huge metaphysical crossover with the phenomenon. And the UFO phenomenon seems like it's just one part of a much bigger picture. Some people get turned off when I talk about the metaphysical stuff, but that is a huge part of it. 1/3 of all alien abductees are near-death experiencers. They have died, been to the other side, and come back. And people that come back often come back different. Sometimes they have abilities or sensitivities that they didn't have before. They can heal with their hands. Their third eye is open, et cetera, et cetera. So maybe there's a reason that they are abducted, because they are more spiritually attuned, or something. Their metaphysics are stronger or something. I don't know, but there is a connection, and it is interesting that the beings seem to like to abduct people that are more spiritual. That is weird, but there are near death experiences where they see Jesus hanging out with great aliens. And alternately, there are alien abductions where they see, angels aboard the UFOs. The Archangel Michael comes up a lot. I mean, not a lot, but a surprising number of time in UFO abductions. Could those be screen memories implanted in their mind to put them at ease? Totally, totally possible. Or Archangel Michael could be aboard UFOs. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean the Christian Archangel Michael. Just like I don't necessarily believe in, exactly the Christian Jesus. I really resonate with the Dolores Cannon version of Jesus. And I was reading those books and similar books before I had my UFO encounter, where I saw it make the sign of the cross in the sky. And so was that a nuts and bolts UFO? Was that something else? I've had a series of metaphysical encounters over the last few years, and I think that may have just been the latest that may have just been one of those. I don't know if it was really a UFO in the classic sense, but it could have been. It totally could have been. Guys, the people that have been down the rabbit hole want this info now. Yeah. I mean, it's wearisome for us guys to see the rest of the world playing catch up, and very slowly and awkwardly and arguing with each other. You got Mick West over there saying it's a seagull. No, it's not a seagull. So you just want to, yeah. Anyway, it's very frustrating seeing the world play catch up. Like a dopamine hit, like heroin. Then we go through withdrawals. Tim Burchett talks, we get a fix. Yeah, right. Then we get sick. Yeah, absolutely. He is one of the few people that are telling it straight, and I just love him for it. Then doesn't matter what your politics are. You got to admire people that are being honest, and especially on this issue. It's such a hard issue to be honest on if you're a politician. And, just a regular person. People get intimidated and harassed by the men in black. Who are they? I guess they're an arm of the control group, and the control group is working with the beings. So some of the men in black are the beings. I guess that makes sense, but and what they do, some of the inhuman men in black is just so weird and random. I could talk about a couple of cases, but I don't think it's like stuff you talk about on air. It's weird. It's not seemly. I mean, they act in unseemly ways. It's odd. They don't have any sense of human protocol or decorum or how humans interact with each other. Let's see. Don't forget about his book project. Yeah, absolutely, man. I can't wait for Lou's book. He is hinting that it's going to be pretty juicy, and I have no doubt that it is. What do you think is going to be in there? Because we've got from Skinwalkers at the Pentagon a pretty good overview of the early days of ALSAP and ATIP, BASS, all that kind of stuff. We didn't get a lot of Lou Elizondo in that book. He was mentioned a couple of times, and he seemed to have some involvement in ALSAP and Skinwalker Ranch in the early days. So that's interesting because he does not talk a lot about that. His involvement was probably minimal. He's only referenced a few times. Of course, that could have been out of respect, and that could have been because they're waiting for his book to come out so he can tell it in his own words. But I feel like we have a lot of information about ATIP and all that stuff. So what exactly is he going to reveal? Maybe he'll reveal the inner workings of the Pentagon and how he had these cloak and dagger, problems with people that were trying to silence him, and he couldn't even brief Mad Dog Mattis. And some people thought this was demonic and was just people shouldn't be messing with it. So my mustache is annoying me. Let's see. Everything in Elizondo's book will be vetted prior to publication. Well, I mean, that is an unfortunate reality. They're not going to let him talk about stuff that he can't talk about. Sad but true, and I don't respect him any less for that. I mean, that's just the way it is. That's just the way it is. Darn it. This Christian says this is a topic that's complicated, and for the rest of humanity that thinks this topic is bogus, this information and the implications could be disturbing. So we need patience. Absolutely. We have to be patient. This thing has been going on for over 70 years since Roswell. And, this has been going on since before Roswell, but it really entered the public purview at Roswell. And then again, when Stanton Friedman really made it, brought it back to our attention. So hats off to Stanton Friedman, wherever you are. Oh, and a channel break, kind of an abrupt channel break. This is Jack with Cosmic Road. Thank you for joining me in the live chat. We're talking about Lou Elizondo and the United Nations possibly entering the UFO subject. This is huge. This is a really big deal that could transform the UFO scene internationally. So it hasn't passed yet, but it is looking good. They're talking about it publicly, and I'm sure that will put pressure on the UN to pass it. Hopefully that'll go forward. So if you wanted to support Cosmic Road, please consider super chat. That'd be great. Or become a channel member. See the first line in the description below. I really appreciate it. Trying to build this channel, trying to allow me to spend more time on this channel so I can make these videos better and, give you the high quality videos that you deserve. Allow me to spend more time on researching and editing, all that kind of stuff. So please consider that. But yeah, moving on, I want to hear what you guys say. Tom DeLong basically said that there was a bunch of fires that the UFOs were starting along the coastline. That's interesting. And that when they were investigating, they shot down the helicopter. Okay, so that's, yes, yeah, that is kind of coming back to me. Yeah, okay. So that he's talking about the helicopter that got shot down, I think in Italy. I'm like 80% sure. It was either Spain or Italy. I'm pretty sure it was Italy. The UFO in if you're just joining, Lou Elizondo in season 2 of Unidentified went to Italy, and he met with some retired government people there that knew some stuff about UFOs. In one case they presented to Lou was this helicopter that was shot down by a UFO with a laser beam. A fascinating case. Nobody was killed, to my knowledge. Correct me if I'm wrong. But now Jake is saying he's Tom DeLong said there was a bunch of fires that the UFOs were starting along the coastline, I guess, of Italy, and that they were investigating that. The helicopter presumably was investigating those fires and maybe the connection with UFOs when it was shot down. So, okay, I wanted to find out what the justification was for shooting down the helicopter. Well, apparently the helicopter didn't like the UFOs starting fires. Why were they starting fires? How does that make any sense? I mean, I'm not saying it didn't happen, but why? Why? I don't get it. I don't get it. Do y'all get it? Does that make any sense to you guys? Can y'all shed any light on that? Were they trying to release some carbon monoxide or something to help the atmosphere? I don't know. There's that really cool video. I think it may be another Homeland Security video where you see the object expelling the gas, this plume of gas that just goes on and on. And, what was that all about? Was it trying to vent something? Did it have an engine malfunction and it was venting something? It didn't look like regular smoke. It looked like vapor or something, some thick gas. Was it intentionally putting something into our atmosphere to help our atmosphere? Because the beings do seem very interested in Earth. I mean, obviously they're here, but they do talk a lot about, to contactees about Gaia and Earth and about how humans need to be better stewards of the Earth, which is interesting. It is fascinating that they are so obsessed with helping the planet. I mean, I guess that's a good thing, right? I mean, nothing wrong with that. But that's just a fascinating wrinkle in all this. So why would they be starting fires in Italy? How does that make any sense? I mean, but the phenomenon is not monolithic. There's different beings doing different things, probably for different reasons. I think about the Colares case. Was that in Peru, where they were, harming people, hundreds of people. The UFOs were coming out of the water, I want to say, and shooting like little laser beams at people, and people were contracting anemia from this contact, and there's a lot of problems and physical health related issues from that Colares case. If that's not in Peru, correct me. But it was was that Brazil? That may have been Brazil. Anyway, I would Google it, but I don't want to disrupt the chat. But anyway, let's see. There's a lot of you guys are commenting. Well, thank you very much for commenting, guys. I'm trying to get to everybody, but there's so much. Have you seen the George Knapp tweet with Tom recently? Tom DeLong, and if that's true, that we're trying to defend against them, that sounds scary. Yeah, I think that was from 2019 or a couple years ago. Anyway, I don't know if that was a super recent interview, but that is making the rounds. And yeah, absolutely, that's interesting, right? That we are trying to defend against them. We are reverse engineering their technology and trying to defend against them. This is an interview because I'm with George Knapp, an interview by George Knapp with Tom DeLong. And Tom has some great sources and some fascinating things that he has let drop over the years. And, he's interesting because, he's not the Dolores Cannon, Barbara Lamb. We're going into the fifth dimension. Everything is really good. The beings are here to help us. As he has a darker take on this. And that's, alarming because that's obviously coming from the information that he's getting from his sources. So, very alarming that he is getting that information. And he says we are reversing engineering the alien technology to learn how to defend against them. And that is something also that was said in the book The Day After Roswell by Colonel Philip J. Corso. that was the core thrust of that book. Is in the opening, we are at war with the aliens, and I'll tell you how we got there. And then he goes through, takes us through reverse engineering the technology and how that has transformed our world, giving us, for example, the modern computer age. Reverse engineering this technology from Roswell and presumably other crashes. But the idea was to reverse engineer this stuff to develop weapons to defend ourselves against them. And then at the end of the book, he talks very, very briefly about the fruits of that labor and how I think it was in the 70s that we were first able to shoot down a UFO. So using that reverse engineered technology. I don't know. There's various stories out there that say we shot down the craft of Roswell. I just came across a new one today, and is that disinformation? I can't imagine that because it was like a pulse weapon that was said to have been used at Roswell in this version of the story. So, you know, and if we've had ARVs since the 60s, you would think that we would also have technology to, I don't know. I mean, there's so much conflicting information, guys. That's the problem with all this. The silos of information on this will get you. You can't go by one source, or even two or three connected sources like Bud Hopkins and David Jacobs. Great information. I don't discount any of what they learned, the whole hybrid thing and all that stuff. I think that is absolutely on point. But I think that Barbara Lamb and Dolores Cannon stuff is also probably on point as well. So what does that mean? Why are they getting such different information? And why are there so many different stories about Roswell? And the information I just came across today was another version of the whole two crashes at Roswell idea. But this had a different take on it, that we shot down both crashes, both ships. They didn't, because I just did a story on this the other day, that there's one idea that there were two objects that collided, and one of them became displaced in time and appeared like 10 years later. And in this other story, there were two objects as well, but one crashed. We shot it down with the pulse weapon. It crashed. Then a few days later, another object showed up to retrieve the bodies or help the survivors and also the technology to retrieve the technology. And we shot that down as well. Um, you know, I, you know, I don't know, but it's interesting to contemplate that we may have had technology to shoot these things down since then, which means that Colonel Corso was wrong, or he didn't know that. That could have been a different group doing that. And I think there are different groups within the government and without doing different things. So anyway, UAP David says, catch y'all later. Thanks to UAP David for joining us. I appreciate that. Let's see. I think the Navy has more in Vieques, Puerto Rico. This is what Christian says, Christian Morales. A lot of USOs there. That's underwater UFOs. There, Puerto Rico is my hometown. Cool. I live in Minnesota now, though. Aguadilla, if I'm saying that right, is my mom's hometown. I guess what the UAP video there is a Navy base. Yeah, very likely. There's a lot of activity south of the border. I mean, and South America is crazy. There's so much activity. A lot of activity in Mexico. You see those flotillas, those armadas of UFOs. I mean, they're not seemingly warlike, but they are fleets of UFOs seen often in Mexico. What is up with that? Why don't we see those here? Is it because we have too many cell phones and they, I don't know. Giving away a copy of Trinity book and In Plain Sight by Ross. Okay, cool. UAP David is giving away a book, cool book, two books. Yeah, so check that out. I hit the button so that these live chats appear after the live chat. But last time I did that, it didn't work. So hopefully people will see your comment, dude. Christian says, "I'll shut up now. I'm 5 minutes behind. Don't want to interrupt." Yeah, I'm way behind on all your comments. You have some great comments. Zimbabwe school incident. Yes, absolutely. It's interesting. Those kids grew up and still confirm that they receive messages telepathically. That is amazing. That is Preston Dennett did a whole video. The great UFO researcher Preston Dennett. did a whole video on the schoolyard cases where UFOs set down in schoolyards and interact with the children there and give them messages or whatever. Sometimes it's about the environment. Again, talking about the beings and their interest in the environment. So Aquadia is one of the best videos because it is real. You can see that thing split. Something is there underwater. Okay. That is that the case where it goes into the water and it comes out and it splits? Okay, yeah. Very, very interesting. Let's see. Anyone remember what Mick West said about Nimitz? Yeah, how did he debunk Nimitz? Well, I think that he totally ignored all the sensor data. He only looked at what the pilots were seeing. Or no, hang on. No, I got it backwards. He only looked at the sensor data. He ignored the pilots and all the other evidence. He just says, "Oh, well, that thing, could be a seagull or whatever it was. Whatever his silly debunking was. Yeah, seagulls. Yeah. So." Yeah, it's all balloon-like entities. Yeah, I want that to become the new swamp gas. It's all balloon-like entities. They're not balloons, but they're balloon-like entities. That was awesome. That was awesome. Lou Elizondo said he was the Men in Black. No, Mick West needs to just stick to video game programming, right? Go back to that. Yeah, he did. He did video game programming or something. That's my general understanding of what Mick did. Anthony Hickens says, "Stop being sheep and waiting to be told. They will never disclose it." Yeah, I mean they are going to unroll some stuff over the next few years. We are going to get some very basic stuff. I think they are going to reveal some very, very basic stuff. Some statistics on numbers that the things that people are seeing. Maybe eventually they'll admit to having recovered craft, although they won't admit they're alien. They'll just say, we don't know what they are. Eventually, we may get the stuff that Admiral Wilson was told, and that I think that Harry Reid was also told. And that was giving them a little bit of the story, saying, yeah, we have some ships. We've been able to reverse engineer some of this stuff, or, got some of it to work, and that's it. There's no, we're not working with the beings. There's no alien abductions. All of that is silly nonsense. But yeah, we do have some ships, and that's all they would admit to. That's all they would admit to. So I think when it comes to disclosure, that's what we're going to get, is that they are going to, they're just going to say, we've got some ships. We've got some stuff to work. Maybe some of the stuff people are seeing is ours. Who knows? Have a good day. That's where I think it's going when they're finally forced to pony up with some information. That's what they're going to say. So let's see. Swamp Gas. Ross Coulthard once said that the truth is quite possibly earth-shattering and would shake the very foundations of who we are and where we come from. Yes. Well, I mean, you get a lot of in the research, you get a lot of the, idea that the beings may have created us, or at least tweaked our evolution. So that is a fascinating idea. And there are many versions of that story, which is why I don't like it. There's so many different versions of Roswell. There's different versions of the reasons behind alien abductions. There's different versions for all these things. And so many of the different versions are coming from credible sources. So, is that deliberate disinformation that is being put out there? I don't know, but it's so annoying. It's very frustrating because there is deliberate disinformation being put out there to muddy the waters, so we don't know what the truth is. And the beings do it too. I mean, if the beings wanted disclosure, they would have it today. They don't. They do seem to want like a grassroots movement to build. And as much as I don't like Stephen Greer, I think that's really, he has popularized CE5. And I think us making contact with the phenomenon ourselves is where it's at. Because, the government's not going to disclose this stuff. Not if they don't, they're going to have to be dragged kicking and screaming into disclosure. There's going to have to be some major whistleblowers that just don't give an F. Don't care if they get killed or imprisoned, to come out with some really solid evidence, before, they're going to be forced into disclosing some stuff. I just don't see that happening, not in the near future. Um, but yeah, so yeah, the truth behind the phenomenon is definitely going to be earth shattering, whether it's involving human evolution or the very nature of reality itself. That's kind of where I think it's going, as the nature of reality. Maybe human evolution as well, but I'm not like a super experiencer or anything. I don't want to oversell my experiences, but all of my experiences have been metaphysical, even possibly the UFO. So that's where I think this goes, is into dimensions and extra dimensional phenomenon, and the nature of reality. And that's what I think Lou Elizondo meant when he said a somber day might come, because we will learn that A, we're not the top of the food chain, and B, reality is not what we think it is. That's my take on what Lou said. Someday I hope to ask him myself. We'll see. I have seen him do interviews with channels smaller than mine, so that is actually encouraging. But I haven't really started doing interviews yet. I would like to start doing interviews with experiencers. So if you would be open to that, let me know in the comments. After the live stream ends, put that in the comments below, and I'll do like a Zoom interview. And Somber Martin, Martin McLean says, yeah, right. Todd T says, could be the genetically engineered us, which would definitely be earth shattering. Yes. Well, that is another narrative that is out there. And by narrative, I don't even mean to say that it's false, but that is one version that's out there of why the beings are here and who they are, is that they are us from the future, that they've messed up their genetics and they need to come back to correct that. Another version has it that they are not us from the future, but they are related to us from the future, and they are coming from an alternate reality, like a parallel reality. And that information is coming from the book I'm reading, The Voyagers, The Sleeping Abductees by Ashiana Dean, where it gets into the big picture stuff, the whole the nature of reality, how the dimensions are laid out, who the beings are, the various beings, what their various agendas are. It takes for granted the law of one, if you know what that is, and says that some of the beings adhere to the law of one, that we are all one, and those are the good guys, and some of them don't, and those are the bad guys. And originally, when the Greys came here, they were, not into the law of one. They came here for selfish reasons, and some of them still do. But many of them have been converted by the more benevolent beings into the law of one and now serve the good guys. But there are still the bad Greys out there. That's from The Voyagers by Ashiana Dean. There's a whole lot of other fascinating information in that book. But yeah, I love those big picture books, and we get the channeled information. We get the Law of One. We got the books of Seth. I haven't read the books of Seth. I've read a lot about them. I've read like summaries of them, of the information. I've seen interviews and stuff, but I've never read them. If any of you have read the books of Seth, let me know what you think. Is that something that I should tackle? And who are the Greys according to the books of Seth? Looking forward to that podcast. Patricia says, friends, watch this video. Incredible sighting in Brazil. Cool. All right. Well, I will have to check that out. Shogun Orta says, if you watch Richard Dolan vids, he talks about how hard it would be to disclose this to the public. There would be too many questions. Yeah, there really would. But I mean, again, this is the nature of reality stuff. This is stuff we should know. I mean, we are entitled to know what reality we're living in and where we came from, right? And people are abducting us. I mean, that's kind of important, right? We deserve to know that. That's crucial. That's important. So, and it also gets into the nature of spirituality, which we have abilities in a connection to spirit that has been suppressed and denied. And I do Reiki now. I'm a Reiki master now. I don't do that professionally, but I have really enjoyed connecting to that energy. And we all have this ability. We all have this ability to heal with our hands and to be connected to spirit in a very powerful way, and that has been suppressed. The witch trials, whatever. This goes back a long way. All these innate abilities and sensitivities we have to spirit have been suppressed, and that is part of the overall picture that I'm seeing. If you guys are seeing different stuff, let me know. But anyway, guys, I think this has been a great chat. I've been going for over an hour now, but please hit subscribe, like, contribute to the channel, hit a super chat, or there's a PayPal link below. Become a channel member. See the first line in the description below. Members receive exclusive access and videos. And let's see, anything else? Let me know your thoughts. And looking forward to seeing you guys next time. Does anybody have any final thoughts before I wrap this up? Mark Harrell says, this is going to sound strange, but the biggest reason for looking forward to the day that I leave this mortal coil is gaining or regaining knowledge of all that is. Absolutely. Absolutely, man. Absolutely. I look forward to, not leaving the mortal coil. I could be leaving the mortal coil, but I do look forward to learning the answers to all the stuff. Yeah, just effing say it so we can move on for once, right? Yeah, just get it out there. Get the truth out there and let us move on and let us deal with it. Let us wrap our heads around it and then incorporate that new information into our lives and let that evolve our society. So absolutely 100%. Okay. I don't see any questions or any final comments. So thank you guys very much for joining me, and I look forward to next time.